Hey there, how you doing? This is the final installment. Oh, that's my beeper going off. But anyway, I'll explain the beeper at the end. This is the final installment of Tennis Strategy 101. And what I'm going to talk about here is play like yourself. You know, it's fine to, admire a player and fantasize about being like them and, wanting to do that. That's fine, right? But it can be really destructive if you feel like you want to be a serve and volleyer, but you have a bad serve, right? Or, you want to run balls down like Djokovic, but you're slow. Or you want to come to the net like Medvedev. Well, no, you don't. Anyway, you want to come to the net like Federer, but you can't volley. Your volleys aren't good. So, what you want to do is you want to accentuate your strengths in your personality, and B, you want to accentuate your strengths as an athlete. So I'm going to give you an example. When I started playing, I was pretty much a retrieving baseliner. So I ran down a lot of balls and just got one more ball back, and it was difficult to win. I didn't really have weapons to win points with. I just had to hope that I could wear down my opponent. It meant a lot of running, and I was fast. I mean, I had really good speed. In fact, one time we were doing some running drills with a guy who had been on the tour, and I was like 1/100th of a second behind him. So I was like, oh wow, I guess I didn't know I was that fast. So, if you're slow, don't play a fast person's game. If you don't have a big serve, don't play a power game. If you don't have this, don't do that. But if you do have a certain thing, then that's great. Maybe, and so one thing I do with my students is very early on, once they're getting ready to get started with match play, I ask them this. I'm like, well, do you think you're going to be a power player? Do you think you're going to be somebody who pressures someone's time and space? Do you think you're going to pressure someone's movement? Do you think you would like to disrupt their rhythm? Or do you want to run around all day long and just not miss and wear people down? And I tell them, and that's the worst way to go, because you're going to get tired and you're going to have a hard time winning 2 matches in a day. So, that's where I was. I played that. And then one day, my friend, Bruce, I'll never forget this. He's like, come on, Bill, you're like 6'2", and you volley well. You should be at the net, right? You should be a serve and volleyer. And I scoffed. And so it was funny. So one day we went out, and for an hour I practiced doing nothing but serve and volleying. And I realized I could do this. And so then I became more or less a full-time serve and volleyer. Voila. Right now, here's an interesting thing. I had been, patterning my game after Bjorn Borg and Mats Wilander and all that, because I admired them. But then I started to pattern my game after Patrick Rafter. Now, that's a good similarity, because he didn't have the biggest serve, but he varied his spins really well, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure he could hit 120, but it wasn't enormous. And then he also didn't have big ground strokes. So if he got into a ground stroke rally, he would pretty much focus on keeping the ball deep and wait for a short ball, right? So when he's serving, he's in. If he's facing a second serve, he's in. If the first serve, pushes him back and they're able to get him into a rally, he'll rally. He could rally with the best of them. And, he just wasn't going to try for a winner. He was going to mostly just keep it deep and not get victimized, so he could get the approach and come in. So that was a better person for me to emulate. Now, here's the funny thing. As I went along, I started to realize I can't beat everybody playing a serve and volley technique, pressuring people's time and space, because some of my opponents were not bothered by it. Either maybe their return of serve was so good that they were returning, 80% of my serves, and or their top spin passing shots on both sides were very precise, making it very, very difficult. So I also needed to work on my B game, my C game, because I always had that D game ready to go. But the one thing that I very rarely ever did was overpower my opponents. So the funny thing was, people would not be particularly impressed with me because I didn't hit winners. But I'm getting the W, so I don't really care what people's opinion are. I want the W. So for me, I had to go away from power. Now, some people are just built for power, and it would be a mistake for them to try to hit 10 shots in a row because they've got the fast twitch muscles, they're big, they're not particularly mobile, so they're going to have to play quicker points, or they're just going to get victimized by quicker, faster players. So, but that's not me. I was not that person. So play like yourself. Miles Davis said it takes a long time to learn how to play like yourself. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it's up to us coaches, and it's up to players to say, okay, what are my skills? What's my personality? How do I want to approach this? So, I also then learned how to disrupt people's rhythm. So that was my B game. If I was having a hard time getting into the net, then I would switch into changing up slices, top spins, flat balls, moving people around on the court, becoming very unpredictable, getting them off their rhythm, and then coming back to trying to come to the net. And many times that worked. But sometimes, oh, hey, Corky. Corky makes an appearance. So I'm going with a different angle today so you can see a different slice of life. And that's why he's called Corky, because he's got a corkscrew tail. Anyway, so my B game was to disrupt my opponent's rhythm. If I was playing somebody who had good returns of serves and good passing shots, but they weren't particularly mobile, then I could shift into making them run. That was more or less my C game. And then if I'm just having the worst day on the planet and nothing's working, I could go back to playing the retriever game. I mean, whatever it takes on the day to make it work. But I'm always starting with my A game. I'm always starting with, coming to the net and putting pressure on them and making them come up with a big shot now. And then, there's sort of a riverboat gambler, roll the dice kind of a feeling to that. And I'm a bit of a risk taker. So it suits my personality really well. I don't get discouraged if they pass me clean once or twice or 3 times, because my motto is I'm coming to the net 100 times. And if you can pass me 51, you're going to win. Right. But it doesn't happen. So anyway, and if it looks like after a period of time somebody's on their way to doing 51, I'm shifting to a different tactic, a different strategy, because I'm not stupid. I'm not going to go run right into a freight train. I'm going to shift to a strategy that's going to beat this person and match up with them better. So anyway, so now, generally what I recommend to people is there aren't a lot of people who are beginners who are going to be able to overpower their opponent. So working on one of these 3 strategies of, intentionally coming out to pressure the time and space by changing where you stand and, coming in forward for some balls, taking some balls closer to the top of the bounce, so that you're taking time away. And I never say take the ball in the rise, because it doesn't really happen much. So I have a video on why you shouldn't say take the ball in the rise. So I'll actually put that right there. okay, later, but it's not there now. If you're watching live, it's not there now. But up here, there's going to be a video that says why you shouldn't say take the ball on the rise, because it's a lot of times it's a misnomer. But anyway, I digress. But putting pressure on their time and space means coming to the net. Sometimes it means pulling them up to the net and passing them, or doing drop shot lob. That puts pressure on their time and space for sure. So there are different ways to do that. The other strategy that people can really work with is challenging their opponent's movement. But here's what you need. If you're going to challenge somebody's movement, you either need to be significantly faster than them, or you need to be significantly better at making angles than they are. Because if they are either of those better than you, or both of those better than you, then it's the charge of the light brigade. You're just asking for it. So you're giving them what they need. So when you give them angles, they're going to give better angles back. So it's a two-way street. You have to figure out, does this play into their strengths, or does it play away from their strengths? And this is maybe the theme, that's the hidden theme in this, is that when you play your strategy, of course you want to play your best strategy as you start a match. But as the match continues, you want your strategy to line up more with their weaknesses, than stick to your strength, because their weaknesses are more important. So there's a really good example of that. I had a player, and he was 5'2" and 85 pounds. And he was the number one player on the team. And he's playing another kid who's this exchange student from Switzerland, a good junior also. And the kid really hated high balls, anything over his shoulder. And he was just flailing. He had no power, and he was missing wide and deep because he couldn't handle the high ball and get it under control. So I told my guy, hey, keep that ball really up on him. He's like, but coach, I hate high balls. I'm like, yeah, I know, but he hates them more than you do. And so Raymond won that match in 3 hours and 45 minutes, in a third set tiebreaker. All three sets went to tiebreakers, and he won the final one. So that's a fun story. Another good example is when Brad Gilbert first started coaching Agassi. Agassi, prior to that, had just been a banger. He was just trying to overpower people everywhere all the time. And so he was going for winners, and he had a tremendous amount of unforced errors. And if he just happened to just have a good day where he hit more cleanly, then he win. And then if he made too many errors, he lost. It was pretty simple. But what Gilbert did is he got him to realize he needs to keep the ball in. So there was this one match when Agassi became the Punisher, right? I don't know how many of you remember that, but his nickname was the Punisher. And he was playing Chang in the quarterfinals. And the match was very interesting because everybody's expecting, Agassi to go big and Chang to, play his normal disruptive game and, kind of run around and make every shot. Well, what Agassi did is he kept every ball within about 3 feet of the baseline, right? Some balls might have been 5 feet away, but those balls are coming right in on the baseline every time. I mean, just relentless. So he took time and space away from Chang, pushed Chang way back in the court. And so that took Chang's offense to almost zero. And then what ended up happening is a role reversal. So Agassi became sort of the indomitable defensive force, and Chang got desperate out of desperation. He was going for desperate winners at the end. And I thought that was a great watershed moment. And then from that, Agassi became a great champion, and the foil of Pete Sampras, and that rivalry, is one of the greatest that there has been. So that's an example. Sometimes you have to dial it in to work with what your real strengths are so that things can go well for you. All right. And then that was a little bit of a digression, but let's go on to disrupting the other player, because you'll find these people and they're like, Fabrice Santoro or is it Peng Shui, who also is very disruptive. And, I don't know. Where is she? Has she surfaced? I don't have we seen her in public? I haven't seen anything that she's been seen in public. Anyway, so I think everybody's concerned about that. But these players who are very disruptive, right? And Kyrgios is like that. He's very disruptive. He's unpredictable. So, he'll slice, he'll drop shot, he'll all of a sudden hit the ball a ton. Um, he'll hit little deft shots, slow, very slow pace, and really keep the opponent off balance. And I know for sure Nadal hates that. But in fact, that's one of Nadal's really difficult matchups, is when somebody doesn't give him the regular pace that he likes. So now the funny thing about that, if I'm playing someone who's trying to disrupt my rhythm, that's when I disrupt their rhythm back, because the player who's disrupting the rhythm doesn't like to have their rhythm disrupted. They like to have you hit them pace back, again and again. And then they use your pace to do all their little magical little things. So they drop shot you drop shot them back, and you come up and you cover. And now they have to respond to what they just did. And it's pretty easy to hit a drop shot off another drop shot. So with the disruptive player, there's some things that you can do. Another thing you can do against a disruptive player is hit the ball deep down the middle, and just keep it really, really deep, because then that also gives them very few options to disrupt with. So, but, one of the greatest wins of one of my players was a kid who was ranked in the 60s, and he was playing number 12, and nobody gave him a chance. All his friends at the tournament were like, "Oh yeah, I hope Shreyas just does okay today. I hope he get a few games against this kid." So early on, it became clear that this kid's ground strokes were just too good. I mean, and then Shreyas didn't even want to come to the net against him at all. So quickly he shifted to disrupting the kid's rhythm, and it was like, all right, here's what you're going to do. It's everything but the kitchen sink, right? So hit the ball high, hit the ball low, hit the ball over here, hit the ball at him, hit the ball over there, hit the ball at him, hit the ball fast, hit the ball slow, hit heavy topspin, some topspin, flat, slice. Alternate your shots. Every shot is a different shot. Drop shot, lob, pull them over here, drive over there, top spin over there, slice down there. Oh man. So anyway, Shreyas had lost the first set because the other kid already built up a pretty good lead. Wins the second set. He's up a break in the third set, but then for 2 games he decides to hit with the kid. For 2 games, he's like, "Oh, now I'm going to see if I can out hit him," right? And he lost those games in like 3 minutes. So he lost his break. So anyway, change over. I'm like, don't do that, right? Stick to the strategy, right? Because he's lost. He's lost. He can't deal with your disruption. And then we also we pulled the Dick Gould trick on him too, is where he and Shreyas and I were looking at them, right? And they look over at us, and I said, "Now here, you sell this. You pretend like I'm just telling you something that's just absolute gold, right? And we're gonna look at them, and we're gonna kind of laugh, because I can kind of tell that when that kid goes to his coach, that coach has nothing to tell. They have no solutions." So anyway, Shreyas walks out there, and just bold, and plays the disruptive game, and gets the upset. So that's another important thing to keep in mind. So anyway, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wrap this up, and remember, if you're getting some value out of this, and I see 4 people are watching right now, so what I'm gonna do in a little bit is I'm gonna circle back, and go to Facebook and see what comments there are. So you have questions, comments, I will respond to you. Gonna go look at my YouTube and then also my LinkedIn. So if you like this, spend some social digital currency. Look with your finger. Come on, with your finger. It's social digital currency goes like this: like, subscribe, share to someone you like, right? That you want to get this content out to, and you know, consider buying me a cup of coffee. I mean, my Venmo is at Bill Patton 720. Cup of coffee or a beer, you right? I'd do it for you. And then the other thing is, when I go to the coffee shop, I always tip the people. If I'm in an Uber, I mean, even in a short ride, I'm always giving $1. So, when I go to a restaurant, I always tip 20%, just because that has been such a huge shift in my own success, is to be generous with other people. So let's spread that around. You will benefit from that, I'm sure, and it will come back to you. Not maybe immediately, but it will. So anyway, go to brainsports.coach and you can subscribe to my blog. And I'm pretty much putting things up there 5 days a week at least. So there's always some really good content there if you have time to read something. Some posts are 250 words. Some of them are like 1,250. So you can read them in just a couple of minutes. And I appreciate the 5 people who are on live with me right now watching. Thank you. Have a great, great day. And then also, again, this is the final installment, and the ebook will be coming out shortly that has been created from this. And I'm saying, and I'm tacking a lot of stuff off on at the end, so I should stop now. All right. Bye-bye.